She looked straight into the camera and told America I was an abuser. While I sat quietly on my porch, thinking the storm had passed, she started a new one, this time on national TV. But before we dive into that, let me catch you up, because this didn't start with cameras and lies. 3 months ago, I was in a hospital bed recovering from heart surgery. My wife disappeared, took the money, sold the house, ran off with another man. I had nothing left but a hospital wristband and a broken heart. But I didn't crumble. I didn't scream. I built my case in silence. With an old email, a secret bank account, and one camera she didn't know was rolling. I turned it all around. She lost everything in court. I walked away with my name and my peace. That should have been the end. But now she's back, with TV lights, scripted tears, and a brand new lie. She thought I was helpless. Her words. But this time, I didn't stay quiet. I played my final move, and what I revealed didn't just destroy her story, it destroyed her. Again. It started with a text, just one line from a neighbor I hadn't heard from in months. "Grant, you're on TV." I remember standing on the back porch, watering my tomatoes. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the yard. I stared at that message, not quite understanding. Me? On television? I walked back inside, slow and stiff like always, grabbed the remote and turned on the old flat screen in my den. And there she was, her hair done up like she was going to church, a soft pink dress, hands folded in her lap, tears welling up in her eyes, my ex-wife. Sitting on a talk show I'd never heard of, talking to a smiling host in a tailored suit. And what she said next made my stomach twist. "I spent years being controlled," she whispered. "He told me how to dress, what to eat. He isolated me from my friends. He threatened to leave me with nothing." I couldn't move. It was like someone had poured ice water down my back. She wasn't talking about someone else. She was talking about me, and the camera zoomed in just enough to catch that single tear. The one that always worked on strangers, on juries, on anyone who hadn't seen the way she looked when no one else was watching. The host nodded, gently touched her hand. "You're so brave," he said. "Thank you for telling your truth." Your truth? I'd already lived through the truth. I'd watched her sign the house over behind my back. I'd seen the bank account go from 6 figures to 0. I'd found the hotel receipts, heard the voicemail she didn't mean to leave behind, and I had brought it all to court. Calm, documented, undeniable. But none of that mattered now, not to the people watching, because on that screen with the right lighting and the perfect edit, she didn't look like a liar. She looked like a survivor. And in just 10 minutes, she rewrote everything. The story, the villain, even me. I turned off the TV, sat back in my chair, and stared at the wall. Because in that moment, I realized something chilling. She hadn't just come for my house, or my savings, or even my name. This time, she came for my dignity. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since that hospital bed. Not pain, not grief, but heat. Because if she wanted another fight, she was going to get one. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Not from friends, not from family, but from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Men from the church, an old army buddy from Kentucky, even a former co-worker from back in '98. They all said the same thing. "Hey man, I saw that episode. You okay?" But they didn't sound worried. They sounded hesitant, like they weren't sure if they still believed in me. The broadcast had gone viral overnight, clips of her crying, clips of her saying I had nowhere to go and he was respected, no one would believe me. Were now plastered across social media. Even people I'd never met were commenting, "Classic narcissist behavior. Another abusive husband hiding behind a quiet face. Men like that know how to look innocent." I watched it happen from the sidelines, like I was watching someone else's life get erased. And slowly, my own community began to follow the noise. One by one, the calls stopped coming. At the grocery store, people avoided eye contact. The pastor didn't return my email about Wednesday group. Even my barber said he was too booked for a trim. It was like I'd become a shadow of the man I used to be, a figure they'd rather forget than ask about. And the worst part? I didn't blame them. Because the story she told was polished, packaged, and made for easy belief. She had the background music, the sympathetic host, the perfect narrative. And I had no voice in that moment. I wasn't trending. I wasn't on screen. I wasn't being heard. It was as if all the truth I fought for, the evidence, the courtroom win, the sleepless nights and closed fists holding back rage meant absolutely nothing. The court had cleared my name, but the court of public opinion? That one didn't care for facts. It cared for feelings, and right now they felt sorry for her. I sat by the window that afternoon watching a pair of kids ride their bikes down the street. They waved to my neighbor, didn't even glance at me. It was strange to fight so hard for peace, only to be left in silence. But I knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not yet, because there's something dangerous about a man who's been misunderstood, pushed into a corner, and forced to start again. Especially when he still has one card left in his hand, and I hadn't played mine. Not yet. I didn't scream. I didn't go online to defend myself. I didn't even tell my side, because deep down I knew no one would listen. Not yet. So I did what I always do when the world gets too loud. I got quiet. I unplugged the TV, stacked every newspaper with her face on the cover into the trash, and went back to the only thing that's never failed me: truth. Real truth. The kind that doesn't care about headlines or hashtags. I opened the old wooden box beneath my bed, the one with copies of court documents, bank records, voice memos, and a USB stick labeled just in case. 6 months ago, I'd put it away, thinking I'd never need it again. Turns out, I was wrong. That same night, I made one call. Walter picked up on the second ring. He sounded older than I remembered, tired. But when I told him what was happening, he didn't ask questions, just said, "Give me 3 days." Walter was my attorney during the divorce. The only man who believed me when I had nothing but a cracked phone and a quiet story. He didn't wear flashy suits, didn't talk over people, he just listened and kept records. That's what made him dangerous, and this time he came prepared. On the 4th day, he pulled into my driveway in a dusty black Ford. No briefcase, just a worn leather folder and a thermos of black coffee. He sat at my kitchen table, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're gonna need to see this." Inside the folder, printouts of production notes from the talk show, a payment agreement between her and the network, and most shocking of all, a transcript from someone on the crew, a producer's assistant. She had emailed Walter anonymously, said she couldn't stay quiet, that my ex-wife had rehearsed the segment with a media coach, scripted lines and even fake tears. I stared at the papers, heart pounding slow but heavy. Walter leaned back in the chair. "She sold you out once," he said, "but this time she sold the whole country a lie." I felt something stir in my chest, not anger, not even revenge, purpose. For the first time in weeks, my hands stopped shaking. My breath came easy. She thought I was helpless, but what she didn't know, I still had receipts, I still had allies, I still had one bullet left in the chamber. And I was finally ready to pull the trigger. I stared at that payment slip for a long time. $12,000. That's what they paid her, not to tell the truth, but to tell a version of it that sells. The document was stamped with the logo of the production company. Segment performance bonus, it said. A pretty way of saying, lie well enough, and we'll make it worth your while. Walter didn't say a word. He just sipped his coffee, waiting. I read the transcript again, this time slower. It was from a young assistant on the show. She couldn't have been more than 25. She wrote, "I don't know this man, Grant, but I know what I saw." She practiced those tears in the green room. The producers told her when to pause for effect. They even changed the lighting so she looked softer on camera. I can't stay quiet knowing this ruined someone's life. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just her lie, it was a production, a show. They turned my life into a ratings grab, and I was the villain. Not because I was guilty, but because I was silent. I looked at Walter. What do we do? He set the cup down, leaned forward. We don't go back to court, he said. That's what she wants. More drama, more airtime. He tapped the table gently. No, we go public. But this time we do it with facts she can't spin. He already had a plan. There was a local news station, small, independent, but known for honest reporting. No studio lights, no makeup, no edits. They didn't care for theatrics, they cared for evidence. And I had all of it. Emails, receipts, voice memos, screenshots from that anonymous producer's inbox, even a backstage video Walter managed to obtain. One where my ex-wife smiled and winked as the cameras cut, then said, "Let's do one more take, I think I can cry harder." Yeah, let the public see that. Let them see who she really is when the applause fades and the lights shut off. I nodded. It was time. Not for revenge, not for pity, but for truth, and maybe, just maybe, to remind the world that not every quiet man is weak. Some of us are just waiting, watching, gathering. And when we speak, we don't need volume. We just need proof. They didn't put makeup on me, didn't adjust the lighting, didn't tell me what to say. That's how I knew I was finally in the right place. The station wasn't big, just 2 floors above a hardware store. No security, no green room, just real people with cameras and questions. And that's all I ever needed. They sat me down in front of a simple black backdrop. No audience, no applause. Just a producer named Ellen who looked me in the eye and said, "Tell the truth, that's all." So I did. I started from the beginning. The heart surgery, the silence, the house sale, the empty bank account. I laid out every step like bricks in a long, cold road, and then I showed them the evidence, the payment slip, the transcript from the producer's assistant, the emails, the uncut backstage footage. They watched it in silence. And when that final clip rolled, the one where my ex-wife laughed and fixed her hair right after pretending to cry on national TV, the room got real still. No one said a word for nearly a minute. Then Ellen leaned forward and whispered, "People need to see this." I nodded. Then let them. The segment aired 2 nights later. They didn't hype it, didn't tease it with clickbait. They just titled it, "The Other Side of the Story." And when it aired, something shifted. Not overnight, not with fireworks, but slowly, powerfully. Old neighbors started waving again. Someone left a bag of tomatoes on my porch with a note, "Still believe in you." My barber called, said he had a slot open after all. And Walter? He just smiled and said, "Redemption tastes better slow." But the real moment? That came when the original talk show, the one she cried on, released a statement. They said they were unaware of any misrepresentation. They suspended the producer, took down the episode. But the internet never forgets. And by the end of that week, clips of my interview were the ones going viral. Not hers, mine. No edits, no soft music, just one man telling his story and with proof. She tried to bury me in lies, thought the world would cheer while I faded away, but she forgot something. The truth doesn't make noise, it doesn't need to, it just waits. And when it comes out, it doesn't knock, it kicks the door in. They say the internet moves fast, but shame moves faster. 3 days after my interview aired, the tide shifted. At first, it was just a trickle. A comment here, a repost there. People saying things like, "Wait, why didn't the original show mention this?" Or "Something doesn't add up." Then came the threads, side-by-side videos showing her crying on camera versus laughing backstage. Receipts, memos, that little email from the assistant, suddenly shared over 100,000 times. By the end of the week, sponsors started backing out. The company that paid her to speak, gone. Her agent dropped her. The magazine that once called her a voice for silenced women retracted the article, quietly but not quiet enough. She posted a statement, called it a misunderstanding, said the footage was taken out of context. But this time, people didn't buy it. Because this time, I didn't stay silent. I didn't just prove she lied. I showed them what manipulation really looks like. Not in courtrooms or fists, but in charm, timing, and crocodile tears. And slowly the world saw it too. More than 2 million people watched the interview. Thousands left comments. But the ones that stayed with me weren't loud. They were like this. My brother went through the same thing. No one believed my dad either. Thank you for saying what so many of us can't. And then came the letter, stamped with the seal of the Ohio Veterans Honor Board. It said, "Mr. Grant Aldridge, we apologize for the temporary removal of your community honors due to recent media controversy. After review, we recognize your service, your integrity, and your courage under pressure. You are hereby reinstated with full honors." It wasn't the medals I cared about, not the perks, not the titles. It was that someone, somewhere, finally said out loud what I'd known all along. I told the truth. That's all I ever tried to do. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want applause. I just wanted my name back. And now, I had it. She had the stage, she had the spotlight, but in the end it was a quiet man on a small channel who told the real story. And the world finally listened. But don't get me wrong, I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party, didn't raise a glass. I just stepped outside, took a breath of autumn air, and smiled. Because sometimes the best kind of justice doesn't come with noise, it comes with peace. I didn't gloat, didn't post a victory speech, didn't even reply to the reporters asking for follow-ups. I'd said everything I needed to say. Now, I just wanted my quiet back. Most mornings I sat on the porch with a cup of black coffee. Same chair, same view. The leaves had started turning, gold, rust, and crimson along the trees lining the old street. It was peaceful again. But peace didn't come easy, and it didn't come for everyone. She, on the other hand, was unraveling. A friend from town dropped a newspaper on my doorstep one morning. Front page, lower right corner. Talk show guest faces breach of contract investigation. Apparently, the network she'd appeared on was under legal fire. Her appearance had been part of a sponsored segment, something she'd never disclosed, and the footage of her behind the scenes. It kept resurfacing. No matter how many takedowns they issued, it came back. The internet doesn't forget. Brands she once promoted, gone. The publisher working on her survivor memoir quietly dropped her. One sentence press release, "We are terminating the agreement effective immediately." Even her new boyfriend, the one she ran off with, made headlines when he filed a restraining order. Said she had emotional episodes and fabricated accusations. I didn't celebrate any of it. Didn't feel joy watching her fall apart. I just felt done. Sometimes when a storm passes, you don't dance in the sun, you just exhale. That's what I did. I fixed up the shed out back, replanted the garden, repainted the porch swing Linda used to love before everything went sideways. And I started writing again. Just notes, really. Nothing fancy. A little journal I kept by the nightstand. Sometimes I wrote about her. Mostly I wrote about silence. How it can hurt but also heal. People in town started treating me like a neighbor again. Not a rumor. Not a headline, just Grant. The guy with the blue truck. The man who always waves at the kids biking past. And when people asked what I'd do next, I'd smile and say, keep breathing. Because that's what you do when the worst part of your story finally ends. You don't go looking for a fight. You let peace have the last word, but life isn't done yet. And neither was she. I thought it was over. I'd made peace, stayed quiet, lived simply until I opened my mailbox one Thursday morning, tucked between a heating bill and a coupon flyer, a white envelope. No return address, just my name in neat handwriting I knew too well. Inside was a legal summons. She was suing me for defamation of character. The irony almost made me laugh. After everything, the lies, the talk shows, the money she stole, now she was the one claiming to be harmed. I sat on the porch swing with the letter in hand, just staring at it while the autumn wind tugged at my flannel sleeve. She couldn't let go. She'd lost control of the story and she wanted it back. This wasn't about justice, it never had been, it was about narrative. She thought she could drown me in paperwork, drag me back into court, force me to spend what little peace I had left fighting a battle no one asked for, but she forgot something. I'd already been through hell, and I didn't leave empty-handed. Walter came by the next morning, legal pad in hand, same calm as always. We went over everything, again, the footage, the transcripts, the emails, and now, the timeline of her new attacks. He looked at me, steady and sure. "She's hoping you'll panic," he said. "Don't." I didn't, because panic is for people who still care about what others think. And at this point, I just cared about peace and protecting what was left of it. So we filed a counterclaim, not to escalate, but to draw a line, to say, enough. This wasn't a war anymore. It was a boundary. I knew her tactics, emotional misdirection, public sympathy, legal pressure. But this time, she wasn't the only one who could play the long game. The judge assigned to the case, same one who saw the original property dispute. The moment he read the complaint, he paused, looked up, and said, "Didn't we already settle this?" I didn't speak. Walter just smiled, because that was the moment we knew. She was out of moves. All she had left was noise, and I'd already learned how to live without it. I walked out of that courthouse, not angry, not triumphant, just clear. Clear that peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you defend, and sometimes you defend it not with fists, but with quiet resolve. Some storms don't come with thunder. They come with headlights. It was just after 8 p.m., sky going dark. I was locking up the shed when I saw them. Headlights crawling down my street, slow and deliberate. They parked right outside my home. I recognized the car. Her car. She stepped out, hair wild, eyes scanning the yard like it belonged to her. I didn't move, didn't speak. She stormed up the walkway, shouting before she hit the steps. "You think you've won? You embarrassed me! This was never yours to tell!" Neighbors' porch lights flickered on, curtains parted across the street. But she didn't care. She kept yelling, waving her phone like it was a weapon, claiming she had new proof, new witnesses, more dirt. But I knew what this was. Desperation, raw and exposed. She didn't have a case, she had chaos, and I refused to be part of it. I stood firm, arms down, voice low. "You need to leave," I said. That's when she raised the phone, pointed it at me, and shouted, "Say it again for the camera, Grant!" She was filming, trying to bait me into looking angry, trying to twist silence into guilt, but she forgot. I'd been here before, and I wasn't playing anymore. I walked back inside, locked the door, didn't slam it, didn't yell through it, just let the silence speak. And the next morning, that video she posted, it didn't go the way she wanted, because half the town had seen her screaming on my lawn. The same folks who once doubted me now stood up. Mrs. Connors from across the street? She called the police, filed a witness statement. The local VFW issued a letter condemning public harassment of one of our own. Even the grocery clerk, the kid who used to avoid eye contact, slipped me a note at checkout. She's loud, but you're solid. And for the first time in a long time, I felt it. Not justice, not revenge, but safety. Because this time I didn't have to fight alone. Truth had taken root, and people were finally starting to water it. I poured my coffee the next morning, sat on the porch again, and watched the world keep turning. She was out there somewhere, still spiraling, still shouting. But here was calm. And calm for a man who's survived storms is the greatest victory of all. They called it a dismissal with prejudice. 4 words, spoken plainly by a judge in a quiet courtroom. But for me, they meant everything. The defamation suit she filed, thrown out permanently. The court ruled it without merit, lacking evidence, and intended to harass. Walter squeezed my shoulder as the words landed. I nodded, not saying much. There was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, a few local reporters waited. I walked right past them. No speech, no headline, just one sentence. We're done here. Because we were. She didn't show up that day, sent her lawyer instead. I imagine she knew it was over too. But here's the thing. I could have filed a suit of my own. Defamation, emotional distress, even a harassment claim. I had grounds. I had evidence. And Lord knows I had the right, but I didn't. Because chasing a ghost only keeps you haunted. And I was done living in her storm. Instead, I went home, changed out of that old gray suit, grabbed a rag and some lemon oil, and polished the porch swing. That evening, I watched the sunset, sky turning gold, orange, then soft blue. Neighbors waved as they walked by. A few even stopped to say hello. And I realized something. I had already won, not because I beat her, but because I remembered who I was before her. The man who built a life with his own hands. The one who kept promises, who didn't need a stage to be strong. She tried to take everything, the house, the savings, my name, but she never got my peace, and in the end, that's what mattered most. I didn't need to ruin her life. She was doing that just fine on her own. What I needed, what I earned, was the quiet. And now I had it. I watched the light fade behind the trees, took one long breath and smiled. Because closure doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with a breeze, a swing creaking under you, and the soft sound of nothing at all. And that's freedom. If you've made it this far, thank you. You didn't just watch a revenge story, you walked through it with me, step by step, from the hospital bed to the courtroom door, from silence to truth, from betrayal to peace. Some scars don't show. They're the ones behind the eyes. The nights you lie awake wondering, was it all my fault? Did I miss the signs? Will anyone ever see the real me again? But here's what I learned. The truth doesn't need a crowd, it just needs to survive long enough to be heard. And if you're a man like me, quiet, older, maybe even a little forgotten, let me tell you this. You're not invisible. You're not weak, and you're not alone. Sometimes the strongest move is not fighting back. It's outlasting the storm. And when the world goes quiet and the cameras shut off and the liars run out of lines, or you'll still be there. Solid, unmoved, free. So whatever your story is, whether you're in the middle of the storm or just starting to rebuild from it, don't give up your peace. It's worth more than the house, more than the bank account, more than the name they tried to drag through the mud. Peace is everything. And hey, before you go, if you're ready to hear what happened next, click the video waiting on the top right of your screen. That's where the next chapter begins. Or if you're still deciding, tap the one on the left. Take your time, no rush. And if today's not the day to keep watching, that's okay too. But before you leave, maybe hit that like button, or share this story with someone who needs to hear it, or even better, drop a comment below. Tell me what you're going through, tell me what peace looks like to you, or just say hello. I read them all, quietly, gratefully. And if you're not ready to subscribe yet, save the page, come back when you are. Because the next story, it just might be yours, and I'd be honored to tell it.